What's up, everyone? So, for my Stories That Live project, I had a very unique, wonderful, incredibly enriching experience. What I did is alongside Haverford senior Jake Fink, conducted an interview with a Holocaust survivor who had never before told her story for the University of Southern California's Shoah Foundation. USC's Shoah Foundation was established by Steven Spielberg in 1994. In directing Schindler's List, Spielberg spoke with many, many survivors and realized that there were still so many stories that needed to be told. Therefore, to continue the initiative of retelling these stories of the Holocaust as he did in Schindler's List, the Shoah Foundation was created. The Foundation's original collection, made from 1994 to 2002, consisted of nearly 52,000 video testimonies with Holocaust witnesses gathered in 56 countries and 32 languages. The Shoah Foundation doesn't only cover the Holocaust, however. In 2008, it started recording stories of experiences in other genocides, such as the Cambodian genocide or the Armenian genocide. So it tackles a widespread history of hate and injustice to educate future generations and ensure that such inhumanity will not recur. Finally, in 2019, the Shoah Foundation launched the Last Chance Testimony Collection Initiative to give survivors or eyewitnesses of the Holocaust not previously recorded by the Shoah Foundation an opportunity to share their testimonies. This is what I did with Edzia Eiges, a survivor of the Holocaust who happened to live just a few towns over from me back in Long Island. There are now nearly 57,000 digitized testimonies and counting in the Shoah Foundation's Visual History Archive. Here is the story of Edzja's testimony. What's up, everyone? It is the evening of Saturday, January 6th, and our USC Shoah Foundation Last Chance Testimony Collection interview with Edzia Eiges is tomorrow. Jake and I both completed the Shoah Foundation training a couple of weeks ago. We've been in constant communication with Edzja's son-in-law, Jeff, who could not have been more helpful in facilitating this process. We met Edzja last Saturday in our home where we got to know each other, shared some rugula, learned some of her story, and filled out the pre-interview questionnaire. And most recently, a few days ago, we hired an amazing videographer, Guy Orman. So we have all the pieces to the puzzle. We just have to put them together tomorrow. Jake and I just met for the final time over Zoom. We have all the topics on which we want to ask questions. We have our slate prepared for the start of the interview, as you can see here, and we're feeling prepared. I'm probably as ready as I can be to hear what will likely be one of the most significant and meaningful stories I'll ever hear. I'm nervous and at the same time excited, but most of all, I can't wait to see the amount of perspective there is to be gained from hearing her story and the impact her story will have on other people. So I really look forward to this interview tomorrow, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. All right, so we are minutes before the interview. Very excited for the special opportunity. We got Jake and me here, and we have Edzja here. Want to say hi?
Hi.
And we have our amazing videographer.
Hello.
Guy Orman. So we're very excited. We're about to get underway. This is the story of Edzja Eiges. Edzja was born in Lodz, Poland on March 24, 1929. At birth, her name was Esther Friedel Hiller. Lodz was the heart of the textile industry, and Edzja's father, Abraham Hillel Hiller, worked in a factory for men's suits, so Edzja was a part of a relatively high-status family before the war broke out. Edzja reflects positively on her childhood in Lodz up until the war began. Germany occupied Poland starting in September 1939. They pushed practically everyone into the Lodz ghetto. Edzja lived in Lodz her whole life, so she did not have to move, but newcomers were crammed into existing apartments, and it was extraordinarily crowded. By February 1940, 160,000 Jews were forced into the northeastern section of Lodz, where the ghetto was located. The Lodz ghetto was closed and finalized as a part of the German state in May 1940. Edzja lived in the Lodz ghetto for just over 4.5 years. However, it was hardly living. Conditions were incredibly harsh in the ghetto. Most quarters had no running water or sewer systems, and people worked extremely laborious jobs in tight spaces, receiving only meager food rations for their survival. Lodz was also very isolated, and the ghetto even used special currency, so no one was getting out. Anyone's survival in these conditions can be characterized as miraculous. Edzia was deported from Lodz in early September 1944 to be transferred to Auschwitz in German-occupied Poland. However, no one had any idea where the train was taking them. Freight cars were used to transport Jews between camps. The conditions in the cars were miserable. It was so crammed that people had barely enough room to sit or kneel. The transports usually held little to no food or water and had no toilet facilities except one bucket in the corner, which quickly became overfilled. The smell of vomit, urine, and excrement was overpowering, and most transports had no windows or ventilation. Many people died en route to the camps. Edzia arrived at Auschwitz with her family by her side. They managed to stick together through all of the Lodz ghetto and the deportation to Auschwitz. Edzia did not go through this Auschwitz entrance, as Auschwitz was a huge complex consisting of both a concentration camp and an extermination camp. But this is important. This entrance says, Arbeit macht frei, a German phrase that translates to work sets you free. The Nazis would go on to work countless camp prisoners to death. Upon arrival, Edzia and her family were immediately sent to what was known as a selection, where inmates would be designated for murder or forced labor. At the selection, Edzia remembers coming face to face with Dr. Joseph Mengele, one of the most infamous figures of the Holocaust, for being the decision maker at selections and conducting medical experiments on prisoners. All of Edzia's family was deemed fit for forced labor at the selection except for her younger brother, Leib Eiges, because he could not work as well as the rest of his family, as he was only 8 years old at the time. Leib was sent to death, but Edzia's mother, Regina Szymkiewicz, would not let go of her son, so she was sent with him. They were both killed at the selection. Approximately 75 to 80% of people who were deported to Auschwitz were sent to the gas chambers in the first selection, as soon as they arrived. Conditions in Auschwitz were horrendous. Even if you make it past the first selection, you are still likely to die. More than 50% of the prisoners in Auschwitz died, whether they were executed or died of starvation, exhaustion, torture, disease, medical experiments, or the harsh conditions of daily life and forced labor in the camp. The average life expectancy was only a few weeks after arrival. Prisoners were immediately stripped of belongings and valuables, shaved, and given one uniform and a pair of clogs upon arrival. One person was practically on top of another in the barracks, and they were barely insulated from the cold. Food rations were insufficient and often rotten. Prisoners worked 11 hours a day with practically no rest or tools. They had to create infrastructure, sort materials, build weapons, produce chemicals, and even take care of the belongings and bury the bodies of dead prisoners. During her time in Auschwitz, Edzia was sent to a gas chamber for execution, but there was not enough room for her and a malfunction, so she lived. Edzia was in Auschwitz for a month before being deported to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp in North Germany in October 1944. A big difference between Bergen-Belsen and Auschwitz is that Auschwitz was both a concentration camp and an extermination camp, while Bergen-Belsen was only a concentration camp. It was also much smaller than Auschwitz. The conditions were just as bad, however. Upon entering Bergen-Belsen was the last time Edzia ever saw her father. They were separated since the camp was divided by sex. She later heard he died in the Buchenwald concentration camp. Edzia told a story about her time in Bergen-Belsen that, I believe, embodies how many of the Jews who survived the Holocaust did, finding ways to support one another. She said that one time, when she was on her way back from getting her bread ration, she passed a young man who looked to be in worse condition than she was, so Edzia gave him her bread ration. Edzia could very well have been the reason that that man lived. Edzia was in Bergen-Belsen for 3 months until January 1945. Following that, she was moved to a subcamp of Flossenburg concentration camp in Plauen, Germany. It was a work camp comprised of 300 women from Poland and Hungary. She initially worked in a munitions factory but was later transferred to work in a kitchen, peeling potatoes, which was good for Edzia because she got to work around food and eat more frequently. The conditions in the work camp were not as terrible as the previous camps Edzia was in, but it still could not possibly be classified as livable, as prisoners were still incredibly malnourished and sick. Edzia was in the Flossenburg work camp until the day she was liberated, April 16, 1945. She describes it as a moment she will never forget. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotion. What you see in the next picture is extremely important. The pile that those soldiers are looking at is comprised of belongings of dead prisoners. Each object belonged to a prisoner who was killed in the camp. Right after liberation, Edzia and the rest of the women in the subcamp were taken to a village in Germany, where they begged for food and slept in bunks. Edzia was very ill from the camps, so she also spent time in a hospital called Elizabeth Hospital. While in the village, Edzia said that a chaplain from a Jewish brigade said that more Jews were alive at a camp in Munich. Edzia and all the rest of the women were completely unaware that other Jews had lived. They had no access to the outside world during their time in the camps and had watched countless people they knew die. Edzia was glad to hear others were alive. Edzia had the option of traveling back to Poland on her own or going with the American army to Feldafing in Munich, an all-Jewish displaced persons camp. She felt safe around the Americans, so she went with them to Feldafing. They traveled for 2 weeks on a train to get there. During this time, there was very little food, but fortunately, they got food from the United Nations Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, also known as UNRWA, a charity organization. The only family member who made it through the war with Edzia was her sister, Luba Eiges. But tragically, she died in a truck accident in Feldafing, so Edzia had no immediate family left after the war. Since Edzia was 17 and with no family, she went to a camp for children in West Germany called Prien. This camp sent people to the USA faster since they served children in need of help. Edzia was transported to the US and moved to Brooklyn, New York, where she met her uncle, Morris Hiller. She knew he was there because in 1940, while in the Lodz ghetto, Edzia received a note from him, which said that he left Germany and had arrived in the US. She still remembers her apartment in Brooklyn at 1602 Union Street. Although Edzia's survival was a series of miracles, she had to live through the most inhumane of experiences. Edzia cannot express enough the cruelty of what went on in the ghetto and camps. She is extremely courageous for sharing her story with us. She is someone who I look up to and greatly admire. Here is some behind the scenes of the interview. It is January 7th, 2024. The interviewee is Edzia Eiges. The interviewers are Devin Lefkowitz and Jake Fink. The location is Roslyn, New York, USA, and the language that the interview will be conducted in is English.
I was comfortable.
Were you aware at the time that Jews were a minority?
Yes.
Who was Jewish and who was not Jewish?
I always felt Jewish because the Gentile always brought it up that you are Jew. Where we lived in, I said, Lodz had a lot of German Volksdeutschen, they called them. And they were breeding them. Had teachers that was Jewish and not Jewish, though it was segregated. So she took us on an outing, and we walked and we came to the school. They're gonna guess us. So my sister said to me, let them guess us, like we didn't care. It turned out to be just a shower. And then they gave us clothes. She went to the crematorium. It's a very hard answer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's a very hard answer about God and all that. Worked out. I didn't want to go to, when I came to this country, I had no English. Very unimportant. That life is more important. That if I would have to live my life over.
So we just finished up our interview with Edzia for the Shoah Foundation. She did an amazing job. So now we just want to reflect a little bit and ask her a few questions. So Edzia, that was, of course, an emotional experience. How are you feeling?
I feel great. It was very good to do it, and I am amazed at myself that how much I remembered.
Certainly took a lot of willpower and was a mitzvah.
It did. Last night I said, what did I do? Why am I doing that? I had nobody to share that with.
Right.
I was by myself.
And do you feel any different about your story? Any resolved feelings
Yes.
now that you've told it?
I do feel a relief that I did tell this story, that I finally, lately I've been thinking of my mother and my brother, because of me being not only a mother but a great-grandmother. To give up a child, at first I felt terrible that she did it, and now I realize how much it took for her to do it. She let 2 daughters go, and she knew already that this child won't be saved. So I think about it lately. I don't know why. Maybe it's the end of my life, and you know, I just cannot forgive myself for feeling all the years that maybe she shouldn't have done it.
So what your mother did during the war, it demonstrates true sacrifice, and Holocaust historians have talked about parents having to make these difficult choices, and they call it a choiceless choice. Can you speak a little bit about that in the context of what your mother did?
Yes. Lately I feel I put myself in my mother's, like I'm the mother. Would I be able to give up a child? And I decided no, I would do the same. It took me a long time to think. Actually, I didn't think about this for years and years and years. It's just lately it came that I said, why? She had 2 daughters and she wouldn't give them up. Well, then I thought of something. I was the younger than my sister, and my parents got a boy after 7 years. You know, he was it.
So
Yeah. Is the choices what somebody did? It's a matter of seconds, not minutes, but seconds.
What do you think the greatest impact that your experiences during this time have had on your life?
The impact.
In the present.
Actually, the impact was when I got off the train in Auschwitz. and I realized that somebody, that he was a son of my father's good friend, and he was dressed very well. And the commanders, Sunder commander, came and they beat him up to a pulp. And I said, this is the end of the world. I have never forgotten it. There was no reason. He wore a pair of beautiful boots, and he was intact, dressed. And they thought that he was something in the ghetto, policeman or something. Even the policemen, they never arrested you for no reason, or the firemen. They were all prisoners. The only thing, they got a little bit more food, but they were the same as everybody else.
How do you think that your experiences affect the way that you live your life?
The last few years, since I lost my husband, I realize that things that jewelry, furniture, things are very unimportant, that life is more important, that if I would have to live my life over, I would bring up my children differently. I would give them more attention than I gave them. If I would have the money, I would travel more and have the experience of traveling. And I probably would go to school and educate myself. Those are my regrets.
And lastly, can you describe to you what it means to be Jewish and have that pride?
Well, the drive is when you are a child and you see that the Christians live a much easier life than the Jews. There was certain places in Lodz that I wouldn't go because Jews were not permitted to be there. You knew if a Jew will step in there, he might get hurt. Also, I told you about the school. That left me with a very bad impression. And I didn't realize that I went to a school that was segregated. It never entered my mind. It entered my mind when I came to America. It just didn't enter my mind.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Yeah. Sometimes you don't realize how...
I didn't realize I was a child. I played. I played cards. I played this. I played that. Whatever. I was a child.
With everything that's going on in the world today and the political climate, can you speak a little bit about the importance of protecting the land of Israel?
Yes. If I would be younger, I definitely would go to Israel and help out. The only thing I was able to do for Israel, I gave a nice donation. I'm not saying, I don't know what else to do. If I would be, I want Judaism to exist and to prosper, because our religion is so nice. If you whatever I know about Judaism was always education, and take care of your elders and your youngest. And it always sat with me very well because I was always a caretaker. I took care when I came to this country. I came to an aunt and uncle, and one person I adopted as an uncle. He was a single man, elderly, and he had no family, and I adopted him as an uncle. And when he got older, my husband and I took care of him. And then when my uncle and aunt got older, I was the main one to take care, go there and spend the day with them. They lived in Queens. I neglected actually my husband and my children. I used to be there every day for them. I appreciated what they did for me. That's first of all. And they were my family. And I had so little family left that I held on to everything. Mm-hmm. I had some family in Israel. They were Holocaust survivors. They survived and they moved to Israel. They were actually my mother's cousins. My immediate family, my aunts and uncles, did not survive. I am actually the only survivor. So I feel very strong about Judaism. And what happened in Israel, the only thing I could do is cry. It hurts me.
Right.
I wish I could do something else. If they would take me, they would have to work for me, take care of me.
Do you want to give a message to all the other college students that are not here today? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that they should stay strong and do what they have to do, and they should identify them. I know it's not easy, and I know it could be harmful, but I don't know of any other way to say it. I lived it, I smelled it. When I was in Poland, I had Gentile girlfriends, and they used to call me the Jewish friend. And when Germany came in and occupied Poland, they did not go near me because I was Jewish. But when I was liberated, I said to myself, there's nothing like being Jewish. And it was such a big thrill for me to see other Jews survived. And I thought that there's very few that survived, which is true. But then when I met other people, I realized from every place somebody survived. Somebody's there. And I continue loving Judaism.
You're a proud Jew.
I am. I am proud to be Jewish. Who else will have a history the way we have? Unfortunately, it's a bad history. It should be nicer. But like everybody else, we have to fight for it. And eventually we win.
And what do you think about these guys? Are they good?
I think they're marvelous. I want them to come for lunch every so often, and I want to keep in touch with.
What's up, everyone? So it is the evening of Sunday, January 7th. We just concluded the interview a few hours ago. It went from about 1:30 to 6:30 with probably just one 10-minute break in there. And I can say for certain that it was a once in a lifetime, a completely special, amazing opportunity. Edzia did a stellar job sharing her story, which is incredible. It's heart-wrenching, yet inspiring. I'm so glad to have met her. She is a spectacular person, and I'm so excited for people to hear her story. And I cannot express enough gratitude to Guy and Yehuda for their amazing camera work. I have never been around such professional videography. I can say for sure that that is true cinema. So I'm so glad to have had their help in the process. It certainly could not have been possible without them. And of course, I have to thank Jeff as well, Edge's son-in-law, who throughout this whole experience guided us, and he was always a source of so many good laughs. So we were so thankful to have him helping us out, and also Vina, who lives with Edzia, made us an incredible lunch and is always so sweet to talk to. So I'm just so glad to have had all of them to help us throughout this experience, interviewing with the Shoah Foundation. And I also have to thank Rabbi Eli. This experience could not have been possible without him. I'm so honored that he thought of me in this so special opportunity. So next steps are I will be reaching out to Edzia over the next few days, and I imagine in the future as well. We hope to get lunch sometime. So I'm really looking forward to that. And once we get the footage from Guy, we will submit that to the Shoah Foundation along with the pre-interview questionnaire and the release agreement detailing Edzio's consent to the Shoah Foundation's publishing of the interview. So the process is going smoothly. This day was certainly transformative. It was a life-changing day for me, and I can say for certain that I will remember this experience forever. So thank you to everyone who made it possible, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you so much again to everyone who's involved in the project. And thank you most especially to USC's Shoah Foundation. To be involved in preserving the history of the Holocaust through such a worldwide medium is an honor. Now more than ever, as we are experiencing some of the most anti-Semitism since the Holocaust, it's critical that we don't forget the importance of history. I know that being given firsthand insight into what occurred during the Holocaust has given me an even stronger foundation to continue to spread positivity regarding Judaism. It's an extraordinary mitzvah for Edzia to share her experience. It's now our responsibility to educate ourselves about such experiences. So I highly encourage everyone in a few months' time to visit the Shoah Foundation's Visual History Archive to watch the full interview with Edzia and hear her story.